the firearm is a violent mechanism. So, you know, when you fire that gun off, you know, there's all kinds of dynamics that are going on there. And when we look at technology and develop it, we develop the technology based on what we call the three-legged stool. Is accuracy, precision, and repeatability. We know we can achieve accuracy. We know we can achieve precision. Repeatability is a function of the firearm. So you got to take the dynamic of the firearm into consideration when you apply the technology. And that's why it's critical to understand the dynamics of the firearm. And in this case, what we do is we put levels of redundancy based on that, the variability of the firearm in order to make sure that our three-legged stool still stands. And this is a good example of that. Just to show you the ease of this technology, because a lot of times people think this is some type of rocket science, but I joke around and say this is actually high school physics. But the laser, what we're doing here is we're imaging onto the surface of this firing pin using a laser technology. This laser technology is actually, you probably all know about it. If anyone's had a friend who has LASIK, or flap and zap as we call it, where you have laser surgery, same laser technology. It's called an excimer. It's actually a pulse UV laser source, and it's used for the same procedure. Our technology has been adapted for many things that you guys use on a day-to-day basis. If anyone here likes Lexmark printers, this technology was developed in order to micromachine the inkjet structures in the nozzles to 6 sigma levels, such that when you buy a cartridge and you stick it in your machine, it doesn't fail. Same technology. This isn't anything that's futuristic or anything. It's a standard 24/7 manufacturing type process. And that's where we adapted it from, in the semiconductor and consumer products markets which we operated in. So it gives you a little bit better idea. Now, I slowed the process down so you could actually see it. So if you see the seconds going by, I can do it in probably about a quarter of a second. So the question comes on cost. Well, how much does that cost? It's about it comes out to be 1/100th of a penny per pulse, based on the new technology that we have. There's only about on the order of about 250 pulses there. So you can do the math. I extrapolated that based on manufacturing costs, overhead, and all that kind of stuff. But it's a very simple and straightforward process. One thing I've brought up, because this is going around in regards to the technology, is talking about how investigators need to look at this. Micro marks are in these types of things, you've got to utilize all the available technology in which to extract information. From what I can read on forensic scientists, and for ourselves too, from myself as an engineer, you know, we're trying to extract technology to generate profit. Forensic scientists need to utilize all they can to extract data out of evidence. In this case here, this is an example, UC Davis did a test, and this is an example of what would be an unacceptable image based on optical microscopy. And this right here, as you can see it, I've taken the same image and then put it into a scanning electron microscope. Now you can see the difference. The difference is when you shift technologies from an optical technology to an electron imaging technology, is you basically clear away all the diffraction effects that obscure people to be able to view those features using a standard microscope. So as you go down, there's another method using a SEM, which we call backscatter microscopy, which is we do an inverse. It's complex, but the reality of what it does is it gives you an inverse image, and it gives you extracts even more data. Now, if you look at the optical microscopy, you can say, wow, that gear code isn't very good. Wow, that radial code is very poor. But if you go over, you can see that those codes on that outer perimeter and on the inner perimeter are actually very, very well there. They transferred very well. And that's one of the things when you look at this technology and when people do studies on this, they've got to understand that you can't, you can't stop at one point. As a forensics investigator, you've got to go to the end. You've got to follow the lead to the end. You can't stop at optical. You've got to get into other technologies in which to extract that information out. And as the last one here, this is another example of it.
I don't want to say that most of them can. You can see it optical.
Oh, yeah, most of them you can see optical. And today, we only have an optical setup. But I know how to set up the polarization and methods in which to make sure you'll be able to observe it. But here's another example of a multiple hit. This has actually been specifically pointed out as being detrimental to reading it. Now, you know, once again, I'm not a forensics person, so I just kind of use I'm practical. I'm a practical engineer. I look at it and I look from the SEM aspect and I say, well, I don't know. I'm not certain how anyone could say that you can't read SW101233. You know, so anyhow, these are just examples that when you get to other imaging technology, and I could go even further into it because, you know, as a technologist, we always look at other things. We've used other methods, scanning ultrasonic tomography. You know, we can extract even the minuscule amount of data even on a heavily worn pin. So, you know, it's just you got to go for it and use the technology to extract that evidence out. And that's all I have. Good. Okay. Saw one go. Can I go? Yeah. Yeah. We'll head back.
On back? No, thank you very much.
Oh, you're
welcome.
welcome.
Show us the butt end of that.
Sure.
What's on
Firearms. The question is there any firearms manufacturers that have considered this technology, and if they haven't, why haven't they? I think anything with this type of technology is it's that kind of a political issue, and so I think those organizations I think they fear both sides, and then when it comes to technology, evolving technology. You look at this application and it doesn't potentially have any pure marketing appeal. So from that point, I don't think the indication I've gotten from industry is if we have to do it, we'll do it. But until then, we'll wait and see how things evolve. I've talked to a number of these groups, a number of manufacturers, especially around New England. I'll give you a good example. One organization invited me in. I sat down with the head of R&D. He was very open to it, took our information, put it on file, said it was interesting. Another one wouldn't allow us wouldn't even entertain talking to us, and when I sent them the information, they put it in a sealed, hermetically sealed bag with a note saying, I won't even keep it in our facility. So it's two sides. My true belief, though, is that there are a few that I've talked to who basically say this is something to take up with the European headquarters. It's the European firearms manufacturers a little bit more interested in technology evolution, safety, issues like this. They'll hear it out a lot more than the U.S. manufacturers will.